A pebble can end a storm tracer run. Not a crash, not a mistake. Just a tiny piece of street in the wrong place at the wrong time. If you ever skated, you know this feeling. And that's why suspension on storm tracers is worth talking about. I'm Daniel. I've been building and testing storm tracers for over a decade. Designing them, breaking them, and seeing how they behave when the street doesn't play nice. So this isn't about trends. This is about what helps when things go wrong. Usually when people hear about suspension, they think about comfort. That's not really the point on electric inline skates. On storm tracers, suspension is not just about comfort. Suspension is about how the system reacts to unexpected vertical input. Cracks, pebbles, bad pavement, transitions you didn't see coming. It doesn't make you better, it doesn't fix bad decisions. What it actually does is stretch a moment to give you time so you can react and respond to it. Let's stay with the pebble example because every skater knows about this, every skater has known the pebble. Maybe you're tracing a clean line, speed just feels right, you have your weight committed, then your front wheel clips something small. You know the feeling, right? But without suspension, when you hit the pebble, it's in an instant. You either were prepared for it, or you're gonna suffer the consequences of hitting the pebble. Wheel to frame, frame to body, no delay. Sometimes you recover, but sometimes that's the end of the run. If you have suspension, you still hit the pebble, but the impact doesn't happen all at once. The system compresses just a little, and you have a fraction of a second to react. And that's plenty. That fraction of a second, it's everything. This is where I want to be very clear. Protection, knee pads, elbow pads, helmets, wrist guards, they are your last line of defense. You don't want to actually use them. They're there for after the mistake, when everything else already went wrong, and then you're going to see the asphalt really closely. Suspension is not the same as protection, right? Suspension gives you time to avoid the crash. So it works earlier than the crash. It helps reduce how often mistakes ends in crashes. I mean, if it were possible to avoid every mistake, you wouldn't even need protection, right? Why do you need protection if you don't miss at all? But since mistakes are inevitable, the goal is to manage how they unfold. Suspension doesn't make you invincible. It just makes some bad moments less final. Without suspension, every little imperfection comes straight through the skate. You feel everything, which can be great for feedback, but exhausting when the pavement gets rough. But with suspension, the street feels calmer, less vibration, less noise, and you're not going to feel numbness. You're still connected to the ground, just softer, less aggressive. Your line feels smoother, not because the ground is smoother, but because the system isn't constantly shocking you out of rhythm. That changes how long you can stay in flow. But there are trade-offs. Suspension isn't all good. So without any sugarcoating, let's talk about it. Here's where suspension starts demanding payment. First of all, weight. Suspension adds mass, always. And on storm tracer, suspension isn't just about acceleration and top speed. You feel it when you jump, when you spin, when you lift your legs, and when you try to correct your movement mid-air. Because tracing is dynamic, and extra weight changes how willing your skate is to commit to the movement and stay with you. You gain forgiveness from the street, but you also lose some sharpness. And of course, there's also right height. I mean, how tall you are from the ground, how high you are from the ground. And any skater takes this very seriously. Being closer to the ground, being shorter, means more stability. That's why aggressive skates are so close to the ground. Not tall, very little height, because you have better leverage, quicker reactions, and if you lean a little bit, it's forgivable. And that's been true to skating since forever. For a simple example, take a look at Powerslide's Trinity system. Trinity system was designed to give more stability by moving the boot closer to the wheels. Because it uses 3 points of contact, it managed to put the boot way closer to the wheels. So you actually lower to the ground without lowering your wheel diameter. When you add suspension, every suspension has a little bit of travel. And that travel is unavoidably how much more taller you are. If you have a 20 millimeter travel suspension, you are at least 20 millimeter higher. And that changes how committed your leans feel, how quickly things escalate when you're already pushing it. You are trading vertical forgiveness for mechanical advantage. And some people love that trade, some don't. But that's not all of it. Suspension also means moving parts. Things to wear, things to break, things to lose, things to be tuned constantly. And a rigid setup behaves the same every day, always. And when you use suspension, your setup will be changing in feel slowly but surely. Sometimes that evolution feels good, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes suspension can be a bad thing for your ride. Especially when you're skating very hard and trying to push your limits, that is very important. And also finally, money, right? I mean, if you're putting more parts, moving parts, parts of wear that you have to change, you have to do more maintenance, and the construction of the whole skate is a lot more complex. You add cost to it. So suspension isn't cheap. So think about it like that way. How much is reasonable for you to get suspension? Maybe you can pay like $100 more on a skate to have suspension. Maybe 200, maybe 300. How much did you pay for a bigger error window when the street suddenly throws something at you? There is no correct answer here. But the question and this discussion is worth having. Honestly, depends on what kind of control you actually care about. Suspension can turn sharp, violent moments into recoverable ones. It can save runs that would otherwise end very badly. But it also raises you off the ground, adds weight, complicates the system, and adds cost. It doesn't automatically make storm tracers safer. It just changes how failure feels when that happens. And this is just one piece about street control. Next, we'll talk about wheels, how they interpret the street instead of absorbing it. And later, what safety actually means. This is all part of Tracing the Build. Tracing the Build is the series where we discuss about building the perfect and ideal storm tracer. Perfect for you. So you learn what actually matters, what choices do you have, what does the technology actually exist for, and what are the consequences of every choice you make. Because most of the choices when building storm tracers is about trade-offs. What are you gaining and what are you choosing to let go? This is episode 1 where we talked about suspension. And that's a wrap on this one. Until next time, trace the storm. Storm tracers out.